Hello, welcome to another episode of Doctor's Orders by Dr Farooq. Now, in the UK, we've been through the worst of the coronavirus crisis. We've suffered approximately 310,000 cases as it stands, and also approximately 43,500 people who have died. I totally understand that we need to reopen in order to avert an economic disaster, and of course the health effects of the lockdown and a failing economy would likely to lead to even more deaths. But it's very important that we don't have a second spike. Public health systems need to back us up. We need to have effective test and trace mechanisms and also use appropriately quarantining and self-isolation. But what is also very important as members of the public, we don't think that the pandemic is completely over and start flouting the rules. So then we will start seeing crowded beaches and mass gatherings. While we should not catastrophize the situation, we should abide by the public health guidance. Now, we are already seeing second spikes in South Korea, China and Iran, and a worsening in the large US states of Texas and California. And I know the government advice often changes, sometimes can be confusing, but I'd like to go through some tips that the government also recommends and what you can do to keep yourself safe with some of the evidence that is behind it. We need to remember to keep our distance. It's a well-known fact that the closer you are to somebody, the greater time you spend with them in close proximity, then the more chance you have of catching the virus. But you're not likely to be infected if you just walk past somebody in the street. The government does still recommend 2 meters, but it does acknowledge where that is not possible, it can be reduced to 1 meter. But remember, I would still advise you to follow some of the other precautions in the list, which I'm going to go through. Avoid being face-to-face with somebody when you're talking to them. This is actually quite important. You are much higher risk of being exposed to droplets when you are directly in front of somebody and actually having a conversation with them. There's lots of videos showing that actually respiratory droplets do pass on even just talking to somebody. So if you are slightly to the side of the person, this will reduce your exposure. And also remember not to have too long a conversation. That might be easier for you chaps out there, but do remember, not too long. Remember to keep your hands and your face clean. You have to be washing your hands with soap and water and drying them thoroughly. Now, wearing gloves actually reduces hand washing and actually just collects more germs, so you don't really need to do this. You can even use alcohol gel to keep your hands clean, especially when you're outside, when you enter buildings, and if you have any contact with surfaces. And remember to really avoid touching your face. It's a common thing we all do. We've got to try to get out of that habit. Avoid crowded spaces and busy times. Now again, the higher number of people you're going to be exposed to, the higher chance you're going to get the virus. So think carefully about avoiding crowds and also avoiding peak times when you're traveling on public transport. Now businesses should also consider how they're going to reduce the density of their social spaces. And also, any employees who can work from home should still continue to do so. And I found it quite refreshing to see how many things can get done remotely. Even being a doctor, you can do remotely. Avoid shouting or singing. This might be a bit difficult for me in the bath, but remember that this is a very interesting reminder because it's been shown that shouting and singing increase the respiratory droplets. So do be careful about this. That is also why the government advised that venues do not play loud music. This avoids people having to shout or having to get close to each other to speak. And remember that after speaking, we have shouting, increasing the level of respiratory droplet spread. After that, then we have coughing, and finally sneezing, which actually can spread droplets by up to 8 meters. Wash your clothes regularly. There is evidence that the virus can stay on fabrics for a few days, so washing your clothes regularly is really important. Don't change your clothes in your workplace unless there's a high risk of infection or there are vulnerable people such as in care homes. And also be careful if you're going to get changed there, you avoid crowded changing rooms. Business premises. Now there's lots of useful tips for businesses how to make themselves COVID secure. But as well as employers being aware of their responsibility, it's important that employees also aware that they need to maintain their social distancing and also be aware about hygiene, because the virus can stay on surfaces for up to 72 hours, which means you have to frequently clean handles, buttons, communal areas such as bathrooms and kitchens. So just be aware of this. Face masks. Now, I know this is a bit of a controversial area and there have been some changes from the government, but I'm just going to go through a little bit about face masks and show you some equipment as well. Now, first of all, I just want to acknowledge stockbuyer.com, who have provided me with some samples of masks, shields and gel so I can demonstrate. You can go to their website, which is included in the link below, if you would like more information on buying PPE from them. Now, the current advice on face masks is that you should wear a face mask on public transport and also when visiting hospitals or outpatients, and also that includes GP surgeries. I want to make it clear that we cannot provide PPE to people, so please be aware about this fact, and you need to either purchase or make your own PPE in advance before you come to your appointments. Also, if you cannot maintain your 2 meter social distance when you're outside or you're in a crowded environment, that's another time when you should consider wearing a face mask. And I personally would recommend wearing it, for instance, inside a shop, but you don't need to wear it when you're outside in the street. Don't forget that the majority of face masks do not protect you from getting COVID, but they protect others from your respiratory droplets. Now, face coverings cannot or should not be used by children under the age of 3, those who have difficulty breathing, or those who have difficulty wearing masks without assistance. It's also important when you do put on and take off your face mask, you make sure you avoid touching your face and also wash your hands before and after you do so. Now, even a basic cloth mask can be used, and these can even be made at home. There are a variety of videos or websites advising you how to do this. They will get you some sort of protection. Again, it's from you passing on your respiratory droplets to other people. So I'm just going to show you the surgeon's mask here. So you will all have probably seen this. Now, again, it's important to realize it's just keeping their respiratory droplets, the wearers, within their own vicinity. It's not really going to be much use to protect them from the outside world. You can see it's actually quite thin. It doesn't really give you that much protection. It's just got the basic layers. You will also see when you do put it on, there's actually quite a lot of gaps present as well. So again, you can see the gaps on the sides, a lot of air is getting in there. Again, remember what I said about not touching the mask itself when you take it off. It's again very important. So if you have somebody you know who's got coronavirus, then it's not really going to protect you from them. So, and also remember, it's quite thin, it's disposable, it will only last a few hours, and then you need to make sure you dispose of it immediately once you have worn it, and you certainly cannot reuse it. Now, the more advanced masks, I'll just show you. These are these ones here. These are basically called the N95K, or sometimes it will say KN95 on it. So they also will have written FFP2. So basically these masks are a lot more substantial, and essentially they will protect you and filter approximately 95% of particles there. When you put them on, you won't really see as many of the gaps. Again, remembering not to touch the mask when you do take it off. So so the N95 bit just means if it basically filters 95% of particles. The FFP2 means filtered face piece mask as well. So they are going to be quite effective, and even could be used if you are looking after somebody who's known to have coronavirus. So the other thing is they last for an entire day if you're wearing them as a health professional, or if you're just wearing them for a short time in and out of shops, for instance, you could reuse them. But remember to make sure it doesn't look dirty, but then I would say you would need to replace them. So I would say these are probably the ones to really consider getting, as they're definitely a lot better. So also what you may have seen some people using is kind of a basic face shield, and essentially it's just going to be basic perspex. And again, it's mainly just going to protect you against some basic droplets So again, it's not going to be that useful, but I think if you added it together with a mask, that could be useful. And some people who maybe don't wear glasses already, they might get some goggles, again, protects you from splashes on your eyes. So again, you could consider getting some of those. As I mentioned, I probably would consider, if I was doing a procedure, seeing a patient, then I would use both my N95 as well as the face shield as well. So that's probably the main uses, I would say. But remember as well, some children who won't be able to wear face masks, you could actually get them a special face shield just designed for children, which actually can be quite useful as well. Don't forget, you need to learn how to put on and take off the face mask properly, and you need to avoid touching the face mask while you're wearing it. Also, another thing to remember, if you do have a beard, a bit like me, then there's no guarantee the face mask will fit properly and work properly, but you will have to trim it right down, or you might need to shave it off. But it's certainly, if it's big and bushy, then you can't really guarantee the face mask will work properly.